Hello everyone, welcome to Walk Talks. Let's today's discussion on the Ukraine crisis by the disclaimer that Walk Talks and anyone associated with our channel do not condone the violence, human suffering and pain inflicted by the ongoing conflict, and this issue must be resolved peacefully as quickly as possible. But before we can get there, we have to understand the root cause of the problem, and in today's video we'll look back at the history and understand the Russian concern and the genesis of this ongoing war. Welcome again to Walker Talks. We wish we could have spoken in happier circumstances, but the situation unfolding in front of our eyes is alarming, and it can escalate into a global conflict very quickly if the leaders don't tread this atmosphere carefully. The persistent claim of the Russian President Vladimir Putin that the eastward expansion of NATO is the root cause of the problem and the security threat which is prompting Russia to invade Ukraine, how far is that true? And is the NATO countries, and particularly the United States, the big brother behind the scene, doing the right thing? Now, NATO was formed in 1942 to create a collective alliance which, mind you, was a military alliance to ensure the security of Western Europe against the communist Tsarist Russia. To create collective security which will prevent any further wars. The world had witnessed two big wars in the center of Europe, World War I, World War II, and the thought process there was, let's prevent war rather than trying to win it if it starts. And the alliance was formed. The big question mark in this alliance was Germany, by then divided into two parts, West and East Germany. West Germany joined NATO. Russia formed its own alliance, the Warsaw Pact, to ensure collective security of the communist countries adjacent to Russia, but also to exert control over those countries to some extent. This was followed by a long standoff period of Cold War in a bipolar world between United States and then USSR. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell and Germany was united as one, which led to negotiations on whether the unified Germany should be part of NATO, Warsaw, or remain independent. After negotiations between Bush Sr. and Gorbachev, a conclusion was reached that Germany will be allowed to join NATO provided, and this is a big provide, NATO does not expand any further eastwards. Now there's a lot of disagreement on this historical fact, whether there was a treaty or not, but it was a trust between two nuclear powers which was subsequently broken, and from the Russian perspective, to them it was a profound breach of trust agreement threatening their security. In 1991, then USSR collapsed, emerged the modern Russia under the leadership of Gorbachev, which was seeking warm relations with the United States and joined the democratic way of governance and free market to promote growth. Now we all know that didn't go very well, and the country collapsed into recession, poverty, but then it has progressed under the leadership of Putin. Now let's take a look at the timeline of NATO expansion to give you a perspective of how NATO has expanded eastwards. I think the picture becomes very clear that the NATO is expanding eastwards rapidly, and it is in the force or frontier of Russia. Some members of United States leadership was against the idea of eastward expansion of NATO, fearing both a resource crunch on our security apparatus, but also creating a strain in relationships between the two countries where Russia will threaten and act out of turn, and that's exactly what is unfolding right now. And if you don't understand this and don't petition our governments for a peaceful resolution, the situation will continue to spin out of control.
Alright, now that we are talking about history, let's talk about history in our own backyard. Bring forward the Cuban Missile Crisis. Back in the day, when Russia was trying to put their missiles in Cuba, we were ready to wage a war which could have been a nuclear World War III. Are these similar situations? Can we draw parallels? Maybe, maybe not. But I think it's an interesting case in point that we see ourselves in a similar situation, but in a reverse order, where as per Putin, NATO countries are expanding eastwards, which essentially means the military might of the West is coming on their forefront. Now, said all that wouldn't justify a war. Vladimir Putin got to ask the question, why are all these countries, which are a former Warsaw Pact country, all willing to join NATO? The power of free market, progression, socio-economic growth is driving these countries there. You can fight it or join it. War is definitely not the answer. Whatever the case may be, the war is in front of us. It is happening right now, and somebody needs to back off to stop this conflict from growing bigger. And mind you, the position in which Vladimir Putin is right now, cornered out, sanctioned out, the combined might of the West against him, and he's not winning Ukraine, the situation will only get out of control. The leaders of the free world need to come together to create an exit plan which is not harmful for anybody.
I hope you are understanding the point that this is not a knee-jerk reaction or a war which has come up suddenly. It has been in the making for many years, and if the situation is not resolved peacefully, if the mutual interest or security interest of both parties are not met, the situation is unlikely to resolve. The primary intention of making this video is to keep everybody informed, understand the context, and when we are participating in this dialogue, we can think about the situation holistically and petition our leaders in government to take steps for peaceful resolution of this awful situation. Now there's tons of misinformation and videos available on the conflict on YouTube and other social media platforms. We'll try our best to get the right information in front of our listeners and then create more content. So thanks for your support again. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate your support, and in the end, may God bless Ukrainian people. May their suffering end soon.